appreciate that so much. What is it?
Actually institute. She bought us.
We are sorry to interrupt, but this space has been claimed as a quarantine zone. New deadly virus COVID-19 has just been detected in Canada. There is no need to panic. This is simply procedure. No one may leave until you've each been thoroughly desensitized to disconnection from the outside world. After which you will be released back into society with the expectation that you will be able to function as normal. The show has already begun, so please quietly take your seats inside. Please keep your masks on, respect social distancing, and most importantly, we hope you're enjoying the show.
For one of the world's largest motorcycle rallies. It's stirring anxiety among some who fear the rally could trigger a COVID-19 outbreak in the state.
It's class dismissed at UNC Chapel Hill, following a weekend of packed parties and growing COVID outbreaks. The university is reversing course, canceling all in-person classes.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus.
Coronavirus.
There are fears a rapidly spreading virus has reached Australia.
This is a rapidly emerging situation where there is not a cause for alarm.
The first US case has been detected.
There's confirmation the coronavirus has reached Australia.
China is urging its citizens not to travel abroad as it struggles to contain the virus.
We will be standing up Christmas Island as a quarantine area.
Foreign nationals coming from China are now banned from entering the country.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
The Italian government tonight put the entire country on lockdown.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
We will be suspending all travel from Europe.
From Italy this evening, it just gets worse. The death toll now worse than China. What happened in Bondi was unacceptable.
12 years of perfect employment and all blows up in 24 hours.
This evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
We're asking everyone to work at home if possible, postpone unnecessary travel.
So together, and with the rest of the world, we face this unprecedented challenge. For many, young and old, 2020 will be the toughest year of our lives.
Countries around the world have now reported more than 1 million coronavirus cases.
The city may have to temporarily bury bodies on public land if they run out of morgue space.
What do we do now?
Hello? Can you hear me? I said, can you hear me? Yes. Wonderful. Hope you're testing negative and staying positive, eh? Okay, I know, weird times we're in. Like, who knew I'd be doing a show through here, right? Like, sorry, one moment.
Sorry about that. So, where were we? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. I don't know what to do. Hello?
Hello, 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 hello.
Is anyone there?
There.
A cinematic king has fallen. An actor
As time for New York, we're coming on the air with breaking news, very sad news to tell the sports world. The LA Times reporting that retired Los Angeles Lakers basketball star Kobe Bryant has been killed in a helicopter crash in
walk through how things have changed. This is at 1 a.m. in the morning. Look at Nevada, Wisconsin, look at Michigan.
You're here? You came here? After everything time has put you through? Thank you. Without people, there is no art, and without art, there is no people, so thank you. Throughout this pandemic, I got lost. I got lost in who I could be. I got so lost, in fact, that I forgot who I am. I strayed from magic. But I always came back to it. And when I came back, I came with a new, fresh perspective. I was able to make solid matter appear. I bent the rules of physical reality and even vanished a hole in a piece of paper. But now, as we say goodbye, I want to share one last piece of magic with all of you. Perhaps you will feel some of the escape that I felt. Thank you for being here. And thank you for connecting with me. before you start, we do have some lovely people up in the booth that will be joining us as well.
Okay, fantastic. So Matt, why don't you start by starting to introduce the team?
Wow. Okay. I love that. I wish I had like 1,000 people here, but I love that it's such a tight team, that it's so concise, and I got to work so tightly with them. So this is Laura Myron. You can introduce yourself.
I'm Laura Myron.
And?
I'm Jada Dawson.
Coming up right now is Leah Scrizzeri, our stage manager. We have 2 more people coming down. We got Abby Malcolm coming down, sound operator, projections operator. And in the booth, we got 1 more guy coming down. We got Alex Sykes, lighting operator and design.
And I'd just like to also acknowledge the folks who are doing the filming tonight, who I believe are from Brock TV.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you. And I'm Karen Fricker. I'm one of the professors in the department, and I was Matt's advisor on his 4F94 honors thesis project, which involved but was not exclusive to the making of the show. It involved Matt doing research about the intersections between magic and theater, and coming up with some ideas about how magic and theater might intersect that he then put in practice in the show. And I cannot but make a plug for the fact that this intersection of practice and theory is what we live for in this department. And so it's really been my pleasure, Matt,
it's been my pleasure.
Supervise you, and I'm really so proud of you and the whole team. This was just such a...
You're not going to get me emotional yet.
Yeah. So it's been such a hard 24 hours, I think we need to acknowledge.
Yes.
So I just want to check in with you all. Well done in getting the show up. This is the one show that you're going to do. I know that's not easy. So how's that been, Matt?
How's the last 24 hours been?
Yes.
Chaotic. Absolutely chaotic. 24 hours ago, we were rehearsing this show, and we were under the impression that we had 3 shows, and we were going to work all weekend. And then this morning, last night, I believe, is when the update came out that Brock was basically closing and doing a lockdown. So we were like, what the hell does that mean for our show? Like, what does that mean? Like, how are we going to get through this? Brian was like, don't worry, it's going to be fine. Like, the dean's on your side. And then the email comes in this morning being like, you only got 1 show. So we really had to make this one count. And I feel like we all put a lot into making this one count.
So. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out to see the show and sharing in this important moment of completion of a project for you, Matt, and participation for you as classmates of his in being able to use this beautiful facility and make amazing things in it. So this is really an opportunity for Matt to hear from you, any impressions that you have of the show, any questions that you might have for him. Because offerings like this are so long in the making. There's so much heart and ideas and things that are put into the show. But it's really important for them to know what you made of it and what questions you might have. So is there anybody who has the strength and the courage to kick us off with a comment or a question? I know I've got loads.
Should we?
Oh, fabulous. Thank you.
I noticed there's a lot of similarities between this show and some other works and some other performers. Do you have any inspiration, direct inspiration from that?
Yeah, I could say for myself, when I was creating the show, I have a lot of inspirations just in magic because I've been a magician for about 10 years. I definitely got inspiration from Shin Lim, who's a magician performer. He does a really good job of, same with Teller from Penn and Teller. I think that's a more familiar name. They both do a really good job at telling a story without speaking, because magic in its general traditional way of being delivered is very monologue-y, is very much like, here I am, and like, this is the trick, and this is an ordinary basket. Like, it's very monologue-y type. So when I was making this show, I was definitely like, how do I get past that? How do I break that? So definitely Shin Lim and Teller were probably the biggest inspirations for myself.
Thank you. Great question. Any other questions coming up? Thank you.
The arts have had a tough time the last couple of years. Were you drawing on a lot of your own experience through this difficulty, and how did you overcome it? What advice can you give people that are still want to cling to the arts?
Yeah, I think we could all have an answer for like how it's been tough for all of us. It's been tough it's really impacted our every bit of this creation process. Myself, this story is an amalgamation of my own story, as well as stories I've heard from students, from classmates, from friends, from other artists that are in the area. So I wanted to deliver something that was universal but personal. When it comes to scene one, what do we do now? Especially with this Omicron variant, right? I wish I had the magic advice that would solve everything and make everything better. That's kind of what my exploration in the show is about. If I were to give one piece of advice, and please feel free to add on, any of you, if you want to add on, is find what connects you to yourself and to others. Find what that is and hold on to it, because for me that was magic. If anybody would like to add.
The music students that are at Brock as well, and they tell them the same thing. I'm going to tell you, stick to it and follow your dream and follow your passion. Just don't give up.
1000%.
Also something to add to that too, like when we talk about this uncertainty that comes with what's next and what do we do now. And one thing I really love about this show is at the end, Matt says, well, before we say goodbye, but he never does say goodbye. And we don't want to say goodbye. We don't want it to feel like this is the last time we're going to see each other. It's all about holding hope and looking towards that future. Without that positivity, that's what's going to dry away the arts. We need to know that we're going to come back. It may be a while, but we're not saying goodbye to each other. And I think that's one big thing that really holds true to the ending.
Amen.
I think it might be interesting to some of you, because it certainly has been interesting to me, if I may, Matt, that in the development of Matt's research project, the paper that then was the first part of this project, you came up with, I think, 3 problems or questions that you had that you wanted to work on in this show. So I think it would be interesting for you to share with them what those 3 principles were.
So like Karen said, I investigated intersections between magic and theater, and I basically proposed 3 principles that I feel that applied to magic that I feel could apply to theater, and that's part of what this, if you can call it an experiment, was about. The first one was misdirection. Misdirection is a very common phrase. I think all of you may have heard it at least once. Especially if you know me, you've heard that 1,000 times by now. Thanks, Dad. Love you too.
So what's misdirection?
Misdirection is basically controlling the audience's attention to where you want them to be, and in magic, that's controlling it to where the dirty work isn't, right? So if I want you to look over here so you don't see that I'm palming a coin or something over here. Magician's ability to do that, that's their ability to misdirect people. That allows them to accomplish tricks, but in theater I wanted to see how further that could be applied with like controlling audience attention, where you're looking and when.
Okay. Principle 2?
Principle 2. Principle 2, pardon?
Karen's keeping you on track.
I know. A lot of you probably know me, I ramble a lot, so I'm glad I have people here to keep me on track.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, really, thanks, Dad. Wow, there's a lot of in-roasting right now. So the second one was influencing audience memory. I feel like there's still room to explore with that. Magicians do a thing where how they narrate and present a trick and a routine is very specific, and it makes you remember it a specific way. It influences how you remember it, so when you tell it to your friends later, it seems a lot cooler than it may have been. Not to say the magic trick wasn't cool. But like, for instance, if I was to do a trick where, you know, if I had you pick a card and I revealed the card somewhere else, that's amazing. But if I subtly put in the hints that you thought of the card, and you walked away believing that you thought of the card and I revealed it, now that's a much more impressive feat. So that's going to impact you more, even if I didn't actually do that. So I really want to experiment with that. I still think there's more I can do with that, but I think I did the most with the 30 minutes we had.
And the third one?
And the third, I don't know why this last one is eluding me right now. The third one is eluding me.
Performance starts and ends.
Performance starts, was that? Wow.
Yeah.
This is why
Stage manager, ladies and gentlemen.
This is why we have a stage manager. Yeah, so the last one was like blurring when the performance starts and ends. So one thing that happens in Magic a lot is, you know, there could be prep work or there could be work after the fact that the audience isn't aware of. For the audience member, and maybe the trick started when I said pick a card, any card. But the trick may have started an hour ago when I pocketed a card on you, or when I had your friend rig something, right? You know, when it starts and ends is blurry for the audience, so I wanted to create that specifically with the pre-show bit, with Jada and Laura out there. Having our ending where we sit. That was actually the original ending as well before we even had the 24 hours of talkback. So I think we did a pretty good job of all three of those principles in my opinion.
I'm wondering, having heard Matthew talk about these ideas that he was trying to work on in the show, does that prompt any reflections to you of where you saw that? Or any questions that you might have of like how those ideas manifest in the show itself? It's kind of an amorphous question.
As far as the beginning and the end, I didn't feel like there was either. That was the quickest 30 minutes I've ever spent. Seriously, I didn't want to start and then I did. And I like that.
It all blurs into one thing. I was just kind of getting sick. I love that comment because it's I was getting sick of the tradition, I guess, which I always try to say that it's not every theater performance, but the tradition in I guess Western realist theater that the show starts when you sit down, the house lights come down, house lights come back up, show is started, and I wanted to break that. I wanted to be like, what more can we do with that? What else? How else can we start this show rather than just having you sit down, house lights down and up? Yeah. So I think we learned that. Leah?
It also really makes us question, because even within this, the topic of COVID, it reflects on so much. So really, we could say that the show started when COVID first hit, because we did a recap, we do the reflection of time past and how much going back, and even one thing when we have our social media track, when we have all the sounds, each sound that is built into that is actually popular events that happened through the pandemic that we might have forgot about, or so you have or even from before COVID. So we look at the basketball championship of the Raptors, we look at the Black Lives Matter movement. So it's all things that have happened. So the show started when COVID started.
And I think I really want to commend the level of design and production that you achieved in this, because from the commanding performance of our two supporting performers in the lobby to the move in here where you're already performing, and the kind of the drawing us in then to a beautifully edited sequence of video clips, which I think might be your work. Leah?
Oh, is that you? No,
was it Alex?
Video was.
Yes, that video. I'm trying to remember which one was me, which one was you.
The first video was you.
Yeah.
The scrolling was you. I was more sound, so I constructed the social media prison, so that kind of nightmare of sounds you hear. That was my concoction.
I basically told her, just give me anxiety with social media. Just put me on edge. And I knew the moment you got it right, because I remember we were sitting in studio B or C or whatever.
And you sat there and you just went.
Yeah, I was itching like this, I don't.
It's be my new alarm clock ringtone.
And Professor Mike Griffin sitting next to me gave a little satisfied when you laid down and then we saw your feet on the screen. Like, that isn't easy, folks, to do that. To have a moment where there's the direction to we're watching the actor and then we know instantly what on the screen is what you're doing. So well done. That was just really, really sophisticated work. And funny, but also heartbreaking, because what you were depicting was really heartbreaking, which was about there was an individual story of all of these diversions, but I think I can't speak for everyone, but I was like, I can have my version of all of this stuff that I got up to during COVID that went on forever and for no time. Mm-hmm. And it's still going on. And for me, there's just this bizarre bleed of how stressful this last 24 hours have been. That it's not over.
It's not over yet. The show hasn't ended yet, folks.
I'm hogging the airwaves with these people. Does anybody else have anything that they want to comment on or bring up?
Just going to add a point to what you're saying of how you could relate to this show. Like, as much as Matt, it is your show, it is your thesis show. I feel like everyone has their own magic, their version of magic that they found during the pandemic that has propelled them through it and given them the strength and courage to get through this. It might not be a creative outlet, it could be something personal, but I think that's why everyone can relate to this show and what makes it so welcoming and warm, even though it's kind of scary.
And so I actually have maybe a final question, because we're heading that way. The final sequence of the light is so beautiful. And I didn't know what that was, because a lot of things that Matt wrote in the script, I was like, I guess I'll figure that out when because it's also, you speak the language of magic, but also there's a lot of things that can only be shorthanded in a script that are realized on stage. So the way in which your embodiment vis-a-vis something that's virtual, but then something also that's these two lights that you're working with. Can you talk about how maybe you and Lee, or you and the team developed that movement sequence? Really?
Are you looking for the technical or the artistic, spiritual?
I want artistic and spiritual, please.
I think there's so much I could say on that. The finale, there are 8 different versions of that finale. Yeah. I had so many ideas. So I appointed Leah quite early in the process. When I was writing the script, I brought her on. So she was very much involved with what I was creating before we even got into a rehearsal room. And I still have the messages back and forth, and me being like, well, what if we did this? Well, what if we did that? We had ideas of, I think one of my first ideas is that we were going to take a piece of cellophane and stack a bunch of things on it. There was a card trick that I could have done. There was an idea where we had a big tub and we a handkerchief was dancing inside of it. There were so many ideas back and forth. But it always came back to this thought of we wanted something that was very euphoric, that was very beautiful, that didn't have to be magic in the sense oh, you fooled me, but magic in the sense wow, that's wonderful, that's wondrous. When we watch movies, for example, we don't, we see, I just watched Spider-Man, sorry, but when you see Spider-Man flinging around, you're not holy crap, how did he do that? You know what's going on. But it still gives you that, it immerses you into this wondrous world. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with the ending. I have my own spiritual connection. I'm wondering what you guys have to think.
Going more into it, of course, I think we wanted something that really related back to that title, and we go back to that idea of not saying goodbye yet. So for us, it became this idea of the fireflies, and when you see fireflies, they flicker. Their lights go out sometimes. They'll reappear and stuff like that. But the main thing for us, it's always that one cheesy quote you see on the journal. It's good friends are like stars. You can't always see them, but you know they're there. And that's the one hallmark quote. But that's also kind of what drew us here. So we're we wanted something to show that even though we may not be able to be in the same room and see each other all the time, we are still there. We are all still connected, whether that be through art, through family, through friends. There's something that connects us all as humans in our society, that even though if we're not in close proximity, or maybe you haven't called that person in a year, you know that there's someone who, if you pick up the phone and called them, you would reconnect like nothing has ever changed. And that's what we wanted. We wanted it to be, we step back into this space and we are automatically welcomed by each other again. We've created this relationship with you guys, and we're experiencing it not as performer and audience, but as people who have experienced this pandemic together and who have been through these trials of finding their niche and trying to find something that helps them get through. And it's that connection of, well, we may not all connect through magic, but there's something magical, like Jada and Laura said, about each moment that we found that helped us find our strength to have hope going forward. So that was really what we wanted. It was that message of hope, and that hope of seeing each other again.
I'd just say well said.
So, thanks everyone. Thank you for sharing this experience, because this is all part of the creative and work that these folks have done, and also part of the journey of Matt's thesis project, which still has one more component due to Professor Fricker soon, which is a reflection piece where he reflects on having done the show, having received this generous feedback, and then thinking about, and I think you've already hinted at this, Matt, about how could this work go forward? What are the real gems here that you might want to investigate in your work as an artist going forward? So thank you so much for being here. Be safe.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Be well.